Hey guys, my name is Rick and this is the HDVIBE channel. In today's video, we're going to dive into one of the most crucial skills that we need to have as motorcyclists, and that is properly being able to negotiate a curve. Whether you're cruising on one of those curvy back roads close to your home that you know like the back of your hand, or you're heading out to back of the dragon or the tail of the dragon riding some of those mountain roads, being able to properly negotiate a curve can mean the difference between a great day and a not so great day. So let's dive into all that right after this. So that's right guys, we're going to be talking about and diving into how to properly negotiate a curve. And if you saw the thumbnail, those folks probably didn't have a really great day. And I think that was actually taken on either the back of the dragon or the tail of the dragon. So there's really 5 mistakes that I see. And as I'm out on rides, I see people going wide in curves and making wide turns or heading off into the shoulder and those sort of things. And this really boils down to 5 mistakes. So the first one is typically they're coming into a curve way too fast and they haven't properly set up for the curve that they're going into, especially if it's a curve or a road that you're not familiar with, so you need to be careful about that. Secondly, they don't put themselves in the right position for that curve. And what do I mean by position? Well, is it a really sharp curve and you probably need to start out as you're setting up in the far right of that curve? And you really have 3 positions. You can be the inside, the middle, or the outside. And so you really need to set up so that you're set up for success in negotiating that curve after you set up that entry speed and you're not coming in too fast. So the third mistake I see people do is they target fixate. And what do I mean by target fixation? Well, for example, if you're making a left sweeping curve or a sharp curve, they may fixate on the right. They're looking down at the right side because they're worried about going off. Or conversely, they're looking at that center lane. They're worried about what's going on. Is there a car coming? And as we know, and as if you practice slow speed skills, where you look is where that bike's going to go. So if you're looking down and off to the right and you're trying to make a left curve, more than likely you're going to go right off and go wide and go off that into the embankment or onto the shoulder. Fourth mistake that I see people make is they don't use their controls smoothly. So what they're doing is they're either pulling a clutch in while they're in the curve, or they're pulling their brakes, or tapping their rear brake, they're tapping their front brake, and the bike is getting very jerky and very unstable and not smoothly going through that curve at a nice pace. And typically, again, what that kind of goes back to is that they're not smooth through that curve. They probably didn't set up properly, were going too fast or too hot into that curve, and so they had to use some of those controls. Now, if you have set up properly and you're not going for your clutch and you're not going for your brake, you shouldn't be shifting while you're going in there. But if you're throttling up again, don't give it a jerk on the throttle, a nice, smooth, progressive increase in that throttle as you're powering through that curve. So the 5th mistake that I see that often happens is people actually steer through a corner. So what do I mean by that? So there's 2 ways that you turn a bike, right? You steer it, and you typically do that at slow speed where you're actually turning the handlebars because the bike is operating at a very slow speed. Or you counter steer. So when you're going through a curve at speed, you're counter steering. And what do I mean by counter steering? So for example, if I'm in a curve that's going off to my left, I'm actually going to press forward on the left side of the handlebar. And you might think it's counterintuitive, but again, it's called press steering or counter steering. I like to call it press steering because you're pressing in the direction that you're actually going to go through the curve. So I'm pressing on that left. And then if I'm going to the right, a right curve, I'm pressing to that right, and I'm also looking through that curve as far as I can so that I can see where I'm going and continue to press. And if you don't have your setup right, and you're coming in too fast, the one thing that can save you is that press. The press is a beautiful thing because if you feel as though you're going to go wide and you're making that left and you feel like you're going to go off the shoulder, press just a little bit more on that left handlebar and that bike will begin to lean. And the problem with that is, you saw that in the thumbnail, is if you lean too far, then you can actually get that rear wheel off of the ground and cause some problems. So this is not a mistake, but really a tip that I'm going to give you before we go into some of the strategy and the things you can do to properly negotiate a curve. But this tip is expect the unexpected. So when you're going into a blind curve, or you're on a road that you don't know and you don't know what's coming at you from the left, or you don't know what's coming at you from the right, prepare for the unexpected. So what do I mean by that? Think about it as if, okay, there's going to be something in the road. Am I set up at the proper speed that I can weave around it, or that I can straighten up the bike and brake to come to a stop? Will there be an animal crossing? Will there be a car that crosses that yellow line and comes over into my lane? And what do? Do I have the strategy? Am I ready for the unexpected to do what I might have to do? A hard swerve to the right. You're going to press it to the right to get that bike out of the way if that car is coming at you from the left. Or an animal crosses. You can begin to straighten that bike up, square those bars up, and begin to brake so that you don't come into that animal. Braking in a curve is a whole other video that I can do, and I'll probably do that at some point later this year so that we can get some practice on that as well. All right, guys, so we've gone through the 5 mistakes, and here is a little acronym that MSF has that has been taught in the basic rider course, the skilled rider course, and that is slipper. What's the S stand for? That stands for slow. So you're slowing as you're coming into the curve, and then the L is look. So you're looking as far as you can through that curve. You're looking as far as you can to see how that curve is progressing. Is there something coming at you? Is there an obstacle? Is there something in your path that you may have to avoid? So slow, look, then press. We talked about the press, right? You're pressing forward, not down. You're not steering to the left, because if you do that, essentially you're pressing right. If you want to go left, the bike is actually going to go the opposite way. So that is something. Don't try to steer through a curve, because you will go wide or you'll go off into the other lane, and that can be catastrophic. And then roll. So what does roll mean? That means actually rolling on that throttle as you get past that apex and you get to the point where you can see far enough, you can see what's coming down the road. You begin to throttle up just a little bit and begin to steady that bike, and as you get into the straight, it will straighten that bike up, and you'll be ready to head down the road and really set up for the next curve that may be coming at you on that twisty road. So that is the strategy. Again, slipper, slow, look, press, roll. Remember that. That is an acronym that I always have in my head as I'm negotiating curves and I'm out riding, and something that we teach in the MSF Basic Rider course as well as in the Skilled Rider course. So now we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm actually going to try to analyze the pictures, starting with the thumbnail, as to what may have gone wrong in these situations. That thumbnail, you've got the rider and a passenger on here. So the first thing I see, the passenger doesn't have any protection on her skin, so they are about to go down. She's going to have some serious road rash. My guess is in this situation, and I think again this is either in the back of the dragon or the tail of the dragon, you can see it's a curve to the right and then a hard curve to the left. My guess is he probably didn't set up right. He came in too fast into that curve. He then began to apply brake, and it might have been either the front or the rear, or he did really press. He knew he was coming in fast, so he had to press so he wouldn't go wide off into the other lane. But as you can see, that rear tire has lifted up off the ground. So that is, and you got sparks flying, so everything underneath is scraping. So he has gone beyond the lean angle, and this looks like it's a Harley Davidson Electroglide or Ultra Limited or something along those lines, an older model. But the lean angle on that is probably 32 or 33 degrees to the right, somewhere around there. So he has hit that max lean angle, and what that does is that kicks that back tire up off the ground, and at that point, you're in no man's land. You're either going to go down, or that back tire is going to catch, and it's going to flip you off the other way, and you're going to high side on it. So a lot of things going wrong, and you'll see in a lot of these situations, there's always a lot of different aspects of what could have happened. Maybe he didn't apply the brakes smoothly, he didn't set up, he pressed too hard. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. So now we'll go to another picture here that I'll show you, and we'll talk a little bit about this. So again, it looks like we've got a curve that's going to the left, and then immediately we've got a hard curve to the right. And this rider has flipped off of his bike, and it looks like he may have actually jumped off of the bike, and the bike went off into the ditch to the right. So my guess is a couple of things. One, again, he probably didn't set up properly, so he's probably coming in too fast, and he may have begun to go wide. And typically when you start to go wide, your brain starts looking at where you're going wide, and oh my gosh, I'm going to go off the road, and you're looking, and that's a guarantee that you're going to go off the road. So he probably target fixated on that ditch that he was about to hit, instead of pressing on that left handlebar, pressing forward and getting a good lean to try to fight out of it, and begin to let off that throttle just a little bit to slow that speed down, but try again not to hit those brakes. There is a concept of trail braking where you're using a little bit of front brake to get that suspension to compress, and you get full traction on that front tire. But that again is a whole nother video, and that's a pretty advanced technique. But someone who's riding on this curvy of road probably should have been able to do some trail braking, and if he wasn't skilled enough to ride this curvy of road, he probably shouldn't have been doing it, or they should have been riding at a much slower speed, at a nice leisurely pace, so that they wouldn't have this type of incident. So now I'm going to show you a clip of me actually riding some curves close by my house. So the first part of this, you can see I'm coming into the curve. I'm actually slowing down, and you'll see this curve is off to the left, so I'm actually moving a bit to the right of that curve to set up so that I can see as far as I can to the left to see what might be out in front of me. Is there a car coming? Is there something out there? How tight is the curve? And then as I press, I begin to make that left curve. The bike begins to lean. I'm leaning into the curve. And then I actually am using a strategy called outside, inside, outside. And what that does is that's your lane position. So that's the position I've selected on this, and that is bringing me, it straightens out the curve a little bit, but what it also does is actually makes you lean just a little bit more, which is actually what I like to do. So I've set up at the speed, I've set my lane position, I'm looking through the curve, I'm pressing on that left handlebar to make sure that I properly get through that curve, and then again I'm setting up for the next curve, so I'm looking through where I need to go, I'm setting up the bike, and I'm using again that slow look press roll strategy so that I'm set up for the next curve. Leave some comments down below. What are some of the strategies that you use when you're negotiating curves? Have you ever found yourself in situations where you may have been riding beyond your skill level, and how did that make you feel? Have you seen others who have ridden beyond their skill level or haven't used those strategies and made one of those 5 mistakes and either had a close call, or maybe they've gone off the road and hopefully they didn't get injured? But I'd be curious for you to share that down in the comments so that others can sort of learn from what I'm saying as well as what you write down in the comments. So guys, if you got some value out of this video, please do give it a thumbs up. Also, consider subscribing to the channel. Hit that button right down here. That really helps out the channel, and I'd really appreciate it. When you do subscribe for the first time, leave a comment down below saying I subscribe so I can personally reach out and thank you for supporting the channel. Also, don't forget to hit the bell icon and select all so you do get notified every time I do put out new content. I have over 200 videos on tips, tricks, rides, reviews, and installs on these Harley Davidson touring motorcycles. There's playlists by product type, by motorcycle, and even by motorcycle skills like this. So there's bound to be something in one of those playlists, either about a product or how to do something yourself that'll either save you some money or give you some tips to keep you safe out on the road. Also, share this with your friends so that like-minded individuals who may want to learn more about cornering and how to properly corner at higher speeds out on the road, they can learn maybe a little bit something by this by sharing it with them. And with that, guys, I want to leave you with this thought. Life is short. Get out and ride the bike. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye now.